Okay, today we are going to talk about Watchpoint Gibraltar. The whole map, we're going to talk about some things I recommend doing and some things I recommend watching out for, focusing largely on the defender's perspective, because they're usually the team trying to do something more specific. The attackers are usually a little bit more free in what they're trying to do. Incidentally, did you know that Winston's ult was called May? I find that one very interesting. So, let's talk about the first checkpoint. So, defending the first checkpoint, defending Gibraltar in general, this is a map that's pretty good with a bunker comp, as is usually the case, but it is one of those maps that's got a lot of long sight lines to abuse, and there's only really one way the attacking team can come at you from, which will also benefit most bunker comps as well. So it's one of those maps where it's a good map to do that on. Dive comps are usually pretty good on this map, both attacking and defending as well, because there's quite a bit of high ground to control for the first two checkpoints. Third checkpoint, not so much, but even then there's some there as well. So dive comps and bunker comps usually do well on Gibraltar. So first checkpoint. So default position, right at the start of the round, we're going to be stood up here, and we're not really under any illusion that we're going to hold the entire enemy team down there from this position. What we're doing mostly by sitting here at the start is we're really just trying to build as much ult charge as we can off of this opening little bit here, and maybe we get to buy a little bit of extra time, that's nice as well. But what we don't want to do, which people very frequently do on this map, but what we don't want to do is jump down directly on the payload as they start pushing under us, because there's not really a whole lot of benefit for us to do so from here, really. We are effectively just killing them right outside of their spawn, and this is not a very convenient place to defend from, because if we jump down here to start defending, so we're going to defend like this. It doesn't feel very good, does it? Bearing in mind the payload would also be taking up the entire middle of our field of view right here, so this is not really a defendable position. And well, what if we defend over here? Well, now we're just looking in the enemy team's spawn door, so they could just be shooting us with no recompense, basically. So we don't want to defend here. We really just want to get as much as we can out of this opening bit as possible, but really, like, what we're going to do is, as soon as they start pushing under us, what we want to do is just rotate around here, jump down over here, and now we can start defending from here instead. And now they're pushing up into us, because suddenly they're looking at this. And that's not nearly as appealing for them, is it? As opposed to us looking at that. So now they've got to move up through the ditch at us, and it's not a particularly enjoyable experience. Some teams will start like trying to stop it like right down here as well. I also don't really recommend doing this, because this is not a great angle, and it's so easy to get flanked from behind at this point, because you've got this whole spot above you that you can't see people going in through this direction, because they can go up through here. So if you're all the way down here, you can't see the flanker moving through that way unless you're watching up there. So Pharah, Reaper, take your pick. Sombra just drops down behind you and ults, and you're none too happy about it. Even May, you know, any of these things, you wouldn't be too happy about it. So I don't recommend defending down here either. It's better to start defending up here, and there's two reasons for this. First off, I mean, they've got to push up this high ground hill at you, which isn't particularly appealing. And if you've got long-range defenders, they get to sit up here, and this is like one of the best high ground spots in the entire game for long-range DPS, because look at this line of sight. You got cover you can use in like a bunch of different places. You can retreat easily if you have to. It's great. It's really hard to get up here. You can't get flanked as long as you're watching the doorway on the left, because they have to go across your field of view to get through there. So you can't get flanked. The most you have to worry about from here is if the attacking team has a diver or a flanker, and they, like, hop up this way at you, they're gonna get pretty... If I could even do it, you know? Like, you can do it. There you go. There you go. And then they just jump right across at you. So that's the thing you have to worry about the most from this spot, but it's like you can see that one coming fairly in advance as well. Especially if they're bad at jumping up the hill like I was right there. It's not really a hill, you get the idea. So this is one of the best high ground spots in the entire game, though. You get a soldier up here, he's going to have a great time. Even your Ana and your Zenyatta even can sit up here as well. And if you've got like a couple of people sat up here together, like you've got like Soldier or McCree up here with the Ana or the Zenyatta, it's a great time for them. They can help each other. If there's somebody jumps up here to help to dive on them, you can always just jump down and reconvene with your team if you have to, because the enemy team's going to be pushing up through the hill at you, so you just jump down and you're just with your team again. And it's just really hard to get killed up here. So this is the best spot to like start defending him, because they've got to push up through a pretty horrible place, and your long-range defenders get to sit on some of the best high ground in the entire game. So it's great. It's not very easy to flank on this map. The most you have to watch out, as long as you're not like defending down here, it's not very easy to get flanked, because you can kind of see where everybody's going to come from, right? The most surprising spot they can come through is through here, if they go all the way around, but this is not exactly a great flanking angle. As long as you just, like, look back through this doorway every now and then, you're fine. Or if you're a little bit more over here, you can catch a glimpse of somebody running by as well. So this is the only spot you really have to watch out for. As long as you're watching the doorway over there, it's pretty much fine. Also, this is where the Sombra will be, 9 times out of 10. This is the Sombra room. If you're ever looking for her, that's where they always decide to be. They might also go down here, if they're feeling a little bit more apprehensive, but those are like the Sombra places to watch out for if there's one on the enemy team. But it's like a pretty straightforward map. The thing is, people just always, they've got no patience, dude. They're just like, yeah, I'm gonna jump right down on the enemy team. Now, if you're playing a dive comp on defense, then you might decide to do that, but this is still not really a position where ever having any dream of actually holding him, so it still ends up not really being worth it most of the time. So you don't really have to worry about flanking. The most you have to worry about, really, is another long-range DPS, because if they've got a Widow or a Hanzo, they're going to be sat up there shooting at your team the entire time, and maybe contesting your DPS over there as well. So it's a map where you do want to have somebody that can contest a sniper or just a long-range DPS in general. So having a long-range DPS of your own that can fire back at them, having a dive tank on your team, a flanker on your team, something like that, something that can contest them is nice, because it does feel very oppressive if there's like a Widow or a Hanzo sat up there and there's just nothing your team can really do about it except just try and avoid being in their line of sight. But if they've got somebody up there, it's not exactly hard to get to them, because you can just walk through here, because heaven knows the attacking team's not going to be launching a major attack from this room anytime soon. You can just walk up through that room. I'm trying to use a controller so that you'd hear less of me clacking the keyboard, but the controller keeps disconnecting. It just disconnected right there. What a professional operation we run around here. So if you're playing a flanker or a diver, you can just walk through this room and then, hey, you're on the Widow / Hanzo. And job's done at that point, or just jump up here if they're over there as well. And if they're up there, then, you know, even easier. I'm on them right now. So it is a map where it's good to have someone that can contest that. Doesn't really matter if it's like your own DPS or a diver or a flanker, what have you. Something that can contest that is pretty good to have. Sometimes this is one of those maps where it's pretty frequent that they're going to run like a Bastion at you, because it's not that hard to get the Bastion on the payload on this map. In which case, having a Mei is a pretty good way to deal with that, because anytime that a Bastion's coming towards you, or you're having a trouble with a Bastion, one of the easiest ways you can deal with that problem is have a Mei and a Roadhog. The Mei puts the wall under the Bastion, whether he's on the payload or he's defending, whatever. You put the wall under the Bastion, he's now above the shield. Roadhog hooks him into your team. Bastion is now dead. That's one of the easiest ways to deal with the Bastion situation. Doesn't require that much coordination outside of 2 people. The hardest thing is getting the Mei to actually put her wall under the Bastion, but that's like the easiest way to deal with it, dude. So don't defend over there, don't defend down here, defend over here, have some long-range DPS. Bunker's really good. Sigma will also probably be good on this map when he comes out as well, but, you know, he's not out yet, so we'll see. This does have the, you know, defending all the way back here does have the unfortunate downside where if you get wiped here, you only get the one fight to defend this point, right? Because they're gonna walk right over there and capture it. It's not exactly a long walk back from your spawn, being that it's over here, but if you get wiped over here, you're gonna be, like, getting back as they're about to capture it, so you don't really get a second fight for this point, but this is a pretty sick place to defend from. And if you defend, like, further up for the hope of, like, getting a second fight here if you get wiped, I mean, you might end up just losing your opportunity to defend from this position, which is the best spot on the map, and, like, those spots are so bad that it's not worth it to try and get an extra fight out of it. You might as well just defend from the one really good spot on the checkpoint. So, going back into the second checkpoint now, so this checkpoint is really bad to get staggered on as they're capturing it as a defending team. Gibraltar has two of the worst defending spawns in the entire game, because if they capture this checkpoint, this happens all the time. Someone got staggered, someone died like a little bit out of sync, and now a couple people are like walking through this door as the attacking team's coming through this gate. Very, very bad. Now, if you find yourself in that position where you have been staggered and you're about to walk out through this doorway, just don't do that. Instead, go through this door, and bam, you didn't have to expose yourself to the enemy team nearly as much. I have seen so many people just, like, autopilot out of this door as they lost their first checkpoint, and then just 3 people get killed running across this gap over here. If you get staggered, don't do that, dude. Just don't walk out this door. Walk out the other door, and then no risk. Easy peasy. So this checkpoint also is relatively straightforward. So this is what we're using as the choke point for this checkpoint now, this being the best spot to defend from. Again, it's not really too feasible to defend over here. Sometimes you get to defend from this spot, that's kind of nice, but if you're deciding to fight ahead of this spot, the important thing is you wait for the enemy team to push the payload through far enough that the door has closed behind them. Because until they've pushed through far enough, this door stays open. You don't want to be fighting while that door's open. Let that door close at least before you start fighting. But this is where I recommend defending from. I have seen a lot of people just been like, hey, dude, let's just go fucking fight them out here. Fuck it, we're all coming out of this doorway as it's opening anyway, right? We might as well fight them right here. Don't do that, dude. Don't do that. This is the easiest spot to defend from, especially if you're running a bunker comp. It's just the best choke point on here. So, if you've got long-range DPS, they get to sit up here. This is a safe place to stand. This spot is a little bit more aggressive to stand in, because you've got a more aggressive line of sight of the hangar. But it's not as safe, because you've got, like, if somebody dives you up here, you have to run all the way through the ship to get back to your team again. Whereas if they dive you up here, you jump down and you're with your team again. So it's a little bit scarier to be over here, but it is a more aggressive line of sight. You get to see more of the hangar, so that's nice. But this is the safer spot to stand in. The only thing with standing over here, like, the sort of risk with standing over here is you can't see that doorway as easily from over here. So I have seen this matter before, where, like, a Farah decides to go through that doorway, and nobody saw it because they were over here, or, like, back here, so no one saw the Farah go through that doorway, and the Farah sneaks over the ship, drops down, and kills the team. I've seen that happen, so, like, be aware of that, but it's not exactly a super common thing that's gonna come back to bite you. But bear in mind, you can't see the door too easily from here unless you come all the way over here. So the most you have to worry about standing over here is the enemy team. If they got a sniper, they're gonna try and get you through this doorway, because it's just the best angle they're going to have on you, basically, if they have a sniper or just a long-range DPS. Like, they're going to try and get you through this doorway, so be aware of that. But you can counter that by standing a little bit more over this way, and then they have to come more through the doorway to shoot you. And then you can use this as cover as well. There's a health kit in here if you need it as well, so that's nice. By the way, this is where the Sombra will be. This is the Sombra room right here. It's not exactly a very safe Sombra room, but this is the room that the Sombra players always use. Sometimes they'll use the one all the way back here. Sometimes they'll use this room, but they almost all... Like, Sombra players hate using small health kits, dude. They always go for the big health kits, even if it's in, like, a pretty scary place. Because, like, think about it. You're playing McCree, you're stood up here, and you're like, oh, fuck, Sombra. And then you see Sombra teleport in this direction. You're like, oh shit, dude. And then you kill the Sombra, right? Like, this is not a very safe Sombra room, but it is the room that the Sombra players always use, because it is the best large health kit they can find. Unless they want to use the one that's, like, behind that door, but they won't do that. So this is a pretty straightforward checkpoint as well. All you've got to really do is just try and watch the doors, and I mean, it's really easy to see all the doors. The enemy team, they've got no other options. Like, this is the checkpoint where I most commonly see this map decided, because the attacking team just doesn't have a lot of options here. They've got a selection of 4 different fuck doors, basically, with that fuck door being the safest one to walk through. But that's kind of it. They can't really do anything fancy, and if they decide that they don't want to contest your high ground defenders, it's practically free. Like, it's one of the easiest checkpoints. This is a map where it's good to have a May on as well, because there's lots of places to wall people off. There's all the doorways for one thing. You can wall people off in here. The architecture of the map makes it really easy to get pretty big blizzards in here, because there's, like, these confined spaces with no cover in them except for, like, this. And then there's this wide open hangar over here, so this is a map where May is pretty good, or a checkpoint where, well, no, the map in general is pretty good for May. It's not like she's bad out there. There's places to wall people off, and that's big open spaces and confined spaces as well, so Blizzard is just as good out there. Same for over there as well, so it's not like May's bad on this map. It's just this checkpoint is, like, pretty good for May. I think this is probably the best checkpoint for May, just because of, like, this fuckhole and, like, the big open hangar part. She's pretty good on the first checkpoint, too, though. May's good on this map. Shockingly, it turns out May's pretty good right now as well, so May is usually pretty good to run. But this is where we're going to defend from anyway. You don't really have to worry about too much on this checkpoint. It's pretty straightforward. The most you have to worry about is contesting a sniper again, so that's usually the most threatening thing. So you have to, well, you don't have to, but you want somebody that can contest a high ground defender or a, well, we're a defending team right now. You want someone that can contest a sniper or a long-range DPS, a diver, a flanker, your own long-range DPS, whatever you decide, you want something that can do it. Faras are pretty common on this map in general, so you do want a long-range DPS, but this room in particular, Fara players, if they didn't have a Fara, I see a lot of people change to Fara to attack on this checkpoint because they like to stand on the ship and shoot down at your team, basically. So you want somebody that can contest a Fara as well. Diva's pretty good for this one because if she decides that the Fara is going to be up on the ship, well, Diva can come up here and get rid of the Fara by herself, no problem. And then hopefully you've got a hit scan DPS that can help deal with it as well, you know? But Fara's pretty common on this checkpoint in particular. Junkrat's pretty good on this checkpoint as well because it's just, like, pretty easy for Junkrat to sit up here and, like, spam bombs down in these, like, tunnels down here as well. Junkrat's also good for this first checkpoint as well, given that they have to push up through the ditch, so lots of, like, confined spaces that you can just spam the shrapnel into as Junkrat, which is very nice. So anyway, this is where we're going to defend, and if we lose here, it's not the end of the world. Like, we can just back up and start defending from over here. This is a map where even if you get wiped over here, you'll probably still get a second shot of defending anyway. Because if you're defending here, their payload's like here, they still have to go, like, pretty far to actually get to the end of the track, and your spawn is only over here. So it's not exactly going to be too hard for you to get back in time to try and get a second fight on this checkpoint. If you do, now here's something to bear in mind. If you're playing a long-range DPS and you're coming back, or if you're playing like Ana, Zenyatta, a hitscan DPS, doesn't really matter. Don't go this way. Go this way instead, because then, Shazam, you're on the high ground, and look, now you can see the whole hangar as they're pushing up through this way. So if you're a longer range DPS, Ana, Zen, you can come up this way, and this is a lot better than going through this doorway, and potentially coming through this doorway and finding, like, Reaper, May, Rhine, whatever, stood, like, right here to try and kill you as you come through the doorway. Don't do that. If you're playing, like, a tank or a closer range DPS, it's not the end of the world if you go through that doorway. But even then, like, going through this doorway is honestly hell. Like, if they decide that they're going to push up... I'm about to sneeze. No, I'm not. I'm just going to suffer, actually. If they decide, and my control, oh my god. So if they decide that they're going to push up aggressively, and, like, they start fighting you as you come through this doorway, it's fucking awful, dude. Like, you're going to come through this doorway and find, like, all of these people right up in your grill. It's not going to be a fun experience. Even if you are tanks or close-range DPS, it's still going to be better to go this way, because it's so much easier to walk through this doorway and then just jump down to contest the point. They are much less likely to be waiting to gank you as you walk through this door, as opposed to that door. So if you're coming back, come this doorway, much easier to get back to the point through here. Much safer. you don't have to walk through that fuckhole and, like, walk through this doorway and get blizzarded right as you come through the door, which is pretty common. So, yeah, pretty straightforward checkpoint. Not too much to worry about. There's no, like, flanking routes or anything like that. It's just about, like, picking the correct spots to defend in, but Gibraltar's a pretty, like, honest map by all accounts. There isn't anything too funky the attacking team can really do to you on this map. This checkpoint is pretty much the exception to it, where there is something they can do. So, this checkpoint, we don't want to defend over here. People like to do this. Don't do that. We're like 3 feet away from their spawn, because this becomes their spawn at this checkpoint. So if we're defending all the way here, like 5 feet away from their spawn, and like, dude, look how far we have to go to get back to safety if bad things start happening to us. We want to defend from up here, because they have to come up this high ground at us, and dude, just look at this long line of sight that they have to push through to get to us, right? Like, they've got to push all the way up this hill into us. It's not very pleasant for them if we've got like a bunker set all the way over here, right? So we want to defend over here. The only thing we really have to watch for is this side over here, because you can get over this. So sometimes you're going to see a Farah just like cut across, and then she's going to come up over that way in all likelihood. And the other thing you have to watch out for is Reaper can stand here and teleport over to that gap there, and then he can come around this way. And you wouldn't know until he comes out of this doorway, or, no, he can't go over the top. I was going to say, or he could go over the top. No, he can't actually do that, because he gets stuck on this pipe. I'm stupid. But he can teleport that gap and then come through this doorway. So if the enemy team's got a Reaper, you want to watch this doorway, because he can just cut across and you won't know, because he teleports out of your line of sight. Farah's going to come up that way, Hammonds are like going to go over that way, Genjis and Hanzos like to go over here as well. Ashe could theoretically do it, but it would be really cumbersome for her to do it. You're mostly going to see Farah, D.Va, Hammond, Genji go over that way to try and get you, so watch out for that. Sometimes Junkrat does it as well, actually. I've seen Junkrats do that before. And then they sit up here and just, like, be really obnoxious from up here at you, because, like, haha, can't get me, suckers, haha. But, you know, hopefully we've got somebody that can contest this person, you know, and if we haven't got, like, anybody that can just jump up there, you can just come through here, and then, hey, now you can fight the guy. If it's Hanzo, it's a little scary to walk up this way if you're not a tank, but, you know, sometimes, you know, you're not gonna have anybody that can just deal with the problem, so sometimes somebody's gonna have to come up here to deal with it, but, like, that's the most funky thing the attacking team can really do on this checkpoint. I have seen this one work before, and it's, like, really ridiculous, but I've seen it work more often than it has any right to, which is that, like, you're defending here, and the enemy soldier just decides, you know what? Fuck it. And he just goes zoom through this doorway and, like, tries to get up here to use Tac Visor. And, or, like, McCree's have done it as well, and, like, dude, I've seen it work more than it has any right to, like, it looks absolutely fucking ridiculous when it's happening, because just imagine you watch soldiers sprint around that corner, run through there, and then run up that staircase. And dude, people just, like, let it happen. Like, they just, like, let the soldier do this. Don't do that. Like, and if he's going that way, he can only be having one goal, right? So try to head that one off at the pass. But, like, I've seen it happen, like, more than it has any right to work, but, like, be aware of that one, I guess. It's, like, surprisingly common. So anyway, we're going to defend here. There isn't too much to worry about outside of that. You do sometimes still have to worry about their sniper sat all the way over there, and now it's not really feasible for us to contest it unless we have, like, our own long-range DPS, because a diver or a flanker is going to have to, like, walk through their team, or go, like, all this way round to jump at them, and even then, you've still got to cover some distance before you can actually get to them, and you're probably having to walk through the enemy team regardless. So it becomes fairly not feasible for a flanker or a diver to contest them if they're all the way over there at this point. That you just have to cover too much ground to actually be able to realistically jump on them. So now having your own long-range DPS is the best way to deal with it, unfortunately. But it's not like that's the best line of sight, because if we've got a shield here, we've still got cover we can use as well. So it's annoying, but it's not exactly the end of the world if they're over there, but it can sometimes be a little bit unpleasant. So, now, May remains pretty good on this checkpoint as well, but she's started to fall off a little bit just because there's less places to wall people off. This is, like, the best bit now. You can't really do it on this base, it's a little bit too open, and you can just, like, walk around it anyway. So May loses a little bit of her efficiency here, but it's still, like, really annoying to, like, have a blizzard chucked at you in here, so she remains good. Bunker at large remains good. Your own long-range DPS have a little bit of a harder time now, because you can't really abuse high ground as easily on this checkpoint. Like, you can stand up here if you're a long-range DPS on the defending team, but it's a little bit scary because if they have a diver, they can come around this corner and just, like, jump right up at you, because they don't exactly have to cover much ground to do that. They've just got to go, like, and then they're on you. So it's a little bit scary to stand up here, but you can get away with it. It's not like you have to go far to reconvene with your team if you need to, you know? And if you're getting pressured by, like, their own long-range DPS or something, you can just drop down and go this way if you, like, really have to instead. So this is, like, the best high ground you get here. If they push around the corner a little bit, you know, you can start using this spot as high ground, but you then have to worry about this angle a lot more than you would if you were down there, because now you actually can't see if somebody comes over there anymore. You can see if they go through that doorway, but that's kind of it. So you now have to worry about this a lot more than you would if you were down here, because here, you can, like, definitely see if somebody's going that way. If you're up here, you can't. So someone would need to tell you, or you need to be watching a lot more. This is, like, not bad to stand up here, but you don't get, like, the best angle, and it's pretty easy to get knocked off of here by all accounts still, because there's not, like, a huge amount of ground to work with up here, and there's not a lot of cover up here other than the ground itself, so it's not usually that hard for you to get dislodged off of here, but this isn't that bad to use either. If you're playing someone like Hanzo, it's not, like, that hard for you to just get back up there again, you know? So, or Genji as well. It's not that hard to just get back up here and start using it again, but it's not the best, but it's definitely still usable. Someone like Soldier or McCree, you have to go, like, fairly out of your way to get up here if you don't have vertical mobility, and sometimes it's just not really worth it. If you're getting ready to use Tac Visor or Deadeye, then it's probably worth it just to get the better angle on it, but if you're not planning to use them in the near future, like, it's often not really worth the time investment to come all the way up here for a high ground that is so easy to get displaced off of, in my experience. But it's still here, it's still something you can use, just be aware of, like, that angle being way scarier for you now. You can stand over here, by the way. I don't recommend, like, oh my god. I don't recommend, like, ever doing it, but you can stand up here, but, like, oh boy, isn't this a precarious feeling spot? Just, like, tucked into this corner, no cover up here at all, entire enemy team can see you. So this isn't a particularly good place to stand, but hey, you can stand up here if you want, I suppose. You know, maybe you could get, like, an Orisa to chuck your shield up there for you. That'd be nice. Honestly, best use of that with the upcoming Symmetra change would be, like, have a Symmetra put a teleporter up there, and then, like, your DPS can just, like, teleport up there, get a few shots in, teleport back down, and just, like, keep doing that to be annoying. But, like, that's probably the best. Like, I've never seen anybody stand up there except maybe Widow, just to try and get somebody as they come around the corner, basically, but it's a really bad spot. Don't use it. It's just like, fun fact, you can stand on that. Oh god, excuse me. So, other than that, pretty straightforward checkpoint. That's the only thing you really have to worry about as the defending team, and this doorway as well, particularly if they have a Reaper, but like, Reaper's the only one you can't see doing that, other than Sombra as well, I suppose. So, you know, you'll know that flank is coming ahead of time, but it's something to be aware of still. And this is where we're going to defend from. We can defend from, like, anywhere, realistically, along the subsequent point, because we will definitely get to fight again if we lose over here. They have to go all the way over here, and our spawn is only right here. So we will definitely get a second fight here, even if we lose over here. They have to go way too far. And you can defend, like, anywhere along this. If you get your choice, and you can't, like, push back up to here again, this is basically the best spot to defend from, because you get to use the bridge as, like, a choke point. But kind of doesn't really matter. Anywhere along here is kind of as good as a different spot along here. Doesn't really matter too much. You can stand up here, by the way, if you've got a long-range DPS that's got vertical mobility. This is like an okay place to stand. You don't really get any cover up here, but it's also just easy to jump down and be in cover again. So, hey, you can stand up here and give it a try, see if you can, like, get a few shots in at least. And there's a health kit over here as well. So you can, like, jump down over here, bam, get health. Good times. And then you can just jump down over here and be in cover. But, you know, mind the gap. There's a gap. So, you can try this. You can just stand down. Okay. No problem. You can just stand down here and, like, use this as cover. If you either can't get up there or are too afraid to stand up there, you can just, like, stand down here, and this is fine as well. Like, you've still got a long line of sight you can use, and you've got cover. But if they have, like, divers or people that are gonna get, like, up in your face, this can be kind of a scary spot to get, like, hemmed in on. Because if you're stood, like, here and they jump on you, well, it's not a great spot, so you have to either, like, muscle through them or run all the way around to try and get away from them, so that can be a little bit scary, but this is fine. May, really good for this point. Look, there's no cover at fucking all out here, so you chuck a blizzard out here, they won't be too happy about it. Same with all big AoE ultimates at this point. Self-destruct is quite scary here. It's quite scary on this checkpoint, more than it is on, like, most checkpoints in the game. Blizzard's good, Deadeye's good, Attack Visor's pretty good, actually. There's not a lot of cover they can use here either, outside of any they've got with them, just because, you know, there's not a lot of cover along here to use unless you can duck into one of the doorways. So big AoE ultimates are very good to have out here, both for the attacking and the defending team, so, you know, watch out for that one. If you do get pushed backwards, you do now have to worry about contesting that spot as well, so having a diver, flanker, long-range DPS still good to have, because you gotta contest that spot as well. If you're playing a diver and a flanker, it might look like you have to go, like, really far to get to that spot, but no, because you can go this way. And you're in, like, cover the whole time, and then you're just, like, up behind them. And if they weren't paying attention, you get to just, like, jump out behind them and scare them and kill them, so that's nice. So you do have to worry about that as you get pushed back. Sometimes they'll use that one as well, but as we established, like, it's not great. Like, you can see, like, if they're up there, you can kind of just see them, so it's not really the end of the world. They don't have that much cover to use. It is just annoying more than anything else. If you're stood up here and they start using that, well, it's a little bit more annoying, because then you're, like, looking, like, all the way up and you can't really see them. But if you're all the way back here, not so much of an issue anymore, because now you can just kind of see them the entire time they're up there. But that's defending Gibraltar. It's a fairly straightforward map. It's pretty honest, you know. You kind of look at it and you get the idea, right? Long sight lines, no real flanking routes. Gonna be good map for long-range DPS and a bunker. So now let's go all the way back around and talk about attacking Gibraltar. So we're going to attack Gibraltar. It is a map where you can run a Bastion pretty easily. It's not that hard to get him set up on this payload, because, I mean, you're in cover most of the time that you're coming out. You just got to do this last little bit up onto it. So it's not that hard to get him on the payload. If they've got, like, their own Bastion thing set up there, it's going to be a problem for you, but this is one of those maps where Bastion usually gets to roll through relatively easily. If you can get it moving, people are bad at stopping those, so you know how it goes. But so the attacking team, this is a good map to be running divers and flankers on, because we're gonna have to contest a lot of high ground, at least for the first 2 checkpoints, and maybe the 3rd checkpoint as well. So we need somebody that can contest those spots easily. We can just, of course, run the bunker at them as well, and, like, that's well and good, but even if you are going to run a bunker, like, at them on the payload as well, I still recommend having a diver or a flanker, just because, like, there's going to be people up there, 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 up there maybe, even if you're attacking, like, and then you come in here, and now you have to contest high ground up there, maybe even, right, like, all the way up there as well. There's a lot of high ground to contest on this map, so you really are going to need somebody that can contest high ground. Even if you're running bunker at them, you still want someone that can contest the high ground. So this part shouldn't be too much of an issue to push through. It's mostly just about, like, keeping your head down and, like, not getting wrecked by them as you push through. And, like, you can use the payload as cover. You know, it's fine. Just, like, try and push it under them. if they jump down and start fighting you down here, like, it's not the end of the world. Even if they, like, wipe you here once because they jumped down on you and you, like, weren't expecting it or whatever, it's not exactly hard to come back. They probably didn't reset on the high ground, so now you can just, like, fight them over here, or, like, if they all jump down, you can just walk up here and now start shooting down at them and deal with it like that as well. Or, hey, come around backside and flank them. Good times. Good map to play far on, but watch out for their long-range DPS also, by the way. So, you know, just keep your head down, try and push it under them, and if they do jump down at you, you know, if they're jumping down at you and they've got, like, a bunker comp, that's, like, the best result you can possibly ask for, because now you don't have to worry about shooting their bunker comp that's up there. Like, their Orisa and everybody just jump down at you, so now you can just, like, fight them on, like, even ground, come around the corner, you're, like, right on them, or come up here and abuse them from above, or easily flank them. That's, like, the best result you can possibly ask for, to be honest with you, because now they're in a way better position to deal with. Now, if they do the correct thing and drop down to start defending from over here, the best thing you can do is, like, not come through the ditch anymore, right? Like, push it up as much as you can. It's going to stop out, like, here, and then, like, this becomes extremely difficult to do at that point. So, we don't have to push with the payload, dude. You know, we can always dislodge them, and then come back and start pushing the payload now that they're out of the way. So, instead, we can go this way, and then, hey, this is way better to fight them from, right? We can, like, sit up here, play poking, prodding with them, and then jump down when we get the opportunity. If we're a close-range team, we can go through here. Or we could jump up here, again, and drop down on them and start fighting like that. Our divers and flankers can jump across to deal with any people over there. We could go all the way around and start mounting an offense from over here, and this is, like, actually very annoying to deal with as a defending team. They're, like, looking at you this way. There's not a lot of cover for the defending team to use this way, except for, like, the corner back there and any shields they've got. And you've got a large health kit here to help you as well. So this is, like, a not bad place to be staging an attack from. You can even, like, split up a little bit and have some people down over here trying to, like, push the payload up, and then the rest are over here, like, contesting it, you know, or contesting the enemy team and making it difficult for them. So you can try for that one. It's not that hard to go for, like, a soft flank as well if you're playing, like, Roadhog, because you can, like, come through here, try and hook somebody from, like, here, because, like, if they're defending here, then, like, you're going to see, like, supports and DPS, like, cut in front of this doorway. So if you're playing Roadhog, sometimes you can just, like, peek through this doorway and pull Diana or the Zenyatta in and kill them. Or, you know, if you're playing, like, McCree, Hanzo, anything like that, you can do the same thing. And, like, it's pretty safe, because you can, like, cut out a line of sight really quickly and reconvene with your team. So, it's pretty safe to do, unless they collapse on you really suddenly, but they probably won't, so it's pretty easy to go for a soft flank here. If you're playing someone like Reaper or Mei, you can just come around this corner and, like, hey, you're right in the enemy team now, so that's nice for you. But the easiest thing to do is just, like, not push through here if they start defending, like, properly here. More often than not, what will actually happen is they will jump down and fight you here, or they will fight you down here. If they do just fight you down here, it's not the end of the world. Like, just, like, be patient and, like, play poking, prodding with them from back here. And, dude, get your Mei, get your Pharah, get your Reaper, whatever. Just jump over here. Hey, start ulting them. Big flank, easy peasy. Like, it's like the easiest Pharah flank in history. You don't even have to use your jets to get into position. It's great. So, that's what you do if they start defending down there. And then if you got to wipe them here or here, you might not even have to deal with this section. You might just get to push through here. And now you just have to worry about not getting too CP'd, because if they change to, like, a lot of fast heroes, they can get back quickly enough to start, like, stalling you out here. And, you know, if they've got, like, a Ham and the Lucio, they sprint out, and, like, that gives them enough time for, like, their Mei to get out here. Sometimes you can get 2 CP'd out here, so it's mostly about just getting a clean fight after you get through that, like, this spot, and continuing to contest any high ground defenders. The biggest thing with Gibraltar in general is if there are people on the high ground, get them off of the high ground. It doesn't even matter if you kill them. Just get them off of the high ground. Force them down, if nothing else, because if you're trying to push through here and somebody is still up there, get them off. Don't let them keep doing that, because that's, like, impossible to just, like, push through. If you're trying to push through here and there's somebody up there, try and get somebody to contest them. Even if you don't have a diver or a flanker, dude, like, honestly, You can't let them sit up here, just, like, go all the fuck way around, like, if you really fucking have to. You just can't let people do that on this checkpoint, or this map, because checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2 have got, like, fantastic high ground for the defending team. You cannot let them do it. You have to get them off. It is going to be the thing that gives you the most trouble on this checkpoint, outside of, like, a Mei bullying you in here, in which case, pick McCree and Roadhog and CC her so that she can't actually use Ice Block and you can kill her, right? Like, that's the easiest thing to do in that situation. But get them off, dude. If there's a Widow, if there's a Hanzo, if there's a McCree, like, get them off the high ground. Don't let them keep doing it. And then, you know, if you're worried about getting 2 CP'd, pick some big AoE ultimates. Get a Mei, chuck Blizzard on here. Shit, dude. You're, like, stood over here, like, shit, dude. You're looking into the Blizzard as the payload comes forward. That's not very fun. So, like, big AoE ultimates, Zarya, Graviton, good for punishing it. D.Va self-destruct. Blizzard, Death Blossom, what have you. It's a big open space with no cover in it. Those big AoE ultimates are going to make it easier to make sure you don't get 2 CP'd on the ends of the tracks. So, big thing, just don't let them control the high ground. And if you're having trouble pushing up through here, just don't push up through here, dude. There's nothing that says you have to. You can use the other options available to you. That's mostly what attacking most maps are about. It's just knowing what options you have available to you and trying to leverage them as much as you can. Which is why the second checkpoint becomes so hard to attack. So, we don't really have to worry about this section too much, because, like, even if they are defending out here, like, it's such a bad spot to defend from that, like, just, like, fighting it out with the enemy team, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to push through. If you're, like, really struggling, like, best thing you can do, chuck Blizzard in here. There's no cover here. Like, if they're defending, like, right here, chuck Blizzard here. They aren't defending here anymore. You've solved the problem, right? So, no problem. If you've got long-range DPS, you can now start leveraging high ground, because you can come and stand up here. This is, of course, the aggressive place to stand, but more exposed. Or you can come around over here, and this is the safer place to stand, but is a less aggressive line of sight, because you can't see that side anymore. And you can't see all the way across there. Because if they have, well, I mean, they will. If they've got supports over here, they're going to be stood all the way back there, usually. So if you're stood over here, you just can't see them. But you can if you're over here. And you can't see that bridge either. So that's safer, but less aggressive. This is more aggressive, but way more hazardous at the same time. Because if they've got, like, somebody stood right there, which they almost always will. There's almost always someone stood on that bridge. I could probably count the number of times I've seen nobody using that bridge on, like, one hand. So you've got to come, like... You've got to try and, like, deal with that before you can really come up here to start fighting. Because you can't just, like, see a soldier or a Widow over there and just go, I think I'll shoot down there, actually. So you've got to, like, deal with that situation first. Now, fortunately, you've got good cover that you can peek from. So that's nice as well. But you've got to, like, deal with that first. But then, like, this is pretty good high ground to use. You can duck in here and get the health kit if you need to. So... Now, you can leverage your high ground as well as the attacking team. Not as good as the defending team, but you've still got something you can use now, so that's nice. So, the easiest way to get through this particular choke point is really to have AoE ultimates, because if the defending team is stood here, and they're, like, all bunched up together, then there's no cover here. If you just, like, chuck Blizzard in here, like, it's really fucking unpleasant, dude. Because what do? You run for this corner, pretty much, or you just, like, go backwards, but you're still in open space as you're doing that. So, like, Blizzard is, like, really good for, like, any space that's like this, where it's kind of either confined with no cover or open with no cover, and this is conveniently both things at the same time, because this is confined and no cover, and this is open with no cover. There is technically some cover, because there's the boxes, but, like, most people are stood over here, right? So their options for cover, if you chuck Blizzard, like, right here, their options for cover become this doorway, like this corner, and that's kind of it, because, or like coming all the way around here as well. So like, yeah, there is cover, but either way, you're still gonna like force them back. You're gonna catch some people, because some people are just gonna be stood like right here, dude. So you're still gonna catch some people. It's like makes it the easy. It's like one of the easiest things you can do to get through here. It's just like chuck Blizzard in here, chuck a Graviton in here, because the enemy team is almost always bunched up around here. So, there you go. That's like the best thing you can do right there, because you really don't have a lot of options available to you. The other easiest thing to do is have a Pharah, and hey, you remember that thing I was talking about that only sometimes happens? Dude, what if you're playing Pharah and you come through here and you're like, oh, wait a second, right? And you're like, oh, fuck, I can actually come all the way over here. Nice. Or, people are, like, really bad at having object permanence in Overwatch. Like, if you come over here and, like, jump up here and just, like, wait, like, 10 seconds, people are going to have forgotten they ever saw you, dude. So then, you're playing Pharah, you waited up here, you come around, you're like, sick, dude. And then you drop down and you barrage the enemy team. Easy peasy. It's just one of those spaces where there's not a lot of cover, and the defending team is almost always clustered pretty close together around here. So it's just like one of the easiest ways to deal with it, especially since you don't really have any ways you can circumnavigate the situation. Like, you don't have another route that you can get your teammates to go through, right? Because out here, like, it's annoying to push up through the ditch, sure. But there's other ways you can go. You can go through here. You can go around, up this way. And then from here, the path branches in 4 different directions again. So you've got a bunch of ways you can theoretically go. Good luck getting your whole team to follow you down one of those ways, but I mean, you've got a lot of options over there. Over here, you don't really, because, like, if you've got some kind of mobility, you can come across here and, like, attack from this angle, so that's cool. But, like, very few heroes can really do that, and it's, like, only really good for contesting the people on high ground. Like, you'll never get your whole team to follow you through this way, right? Like, that'll never happen. So, if you've got a coordinated team, like, great, you can do that one maybe. But other than that, like, most of the time, you're just going to be bashing your head against this choke point. And, like, dude, there is no choke point in this game that you can't break if you throw enough ultimates at it, right? Like, that's the trick, is if you are having a lot of trouble getting through something, there is nothing 6 ultimates won't fix. Like, it will get you through. It might not be the cleanest fight in the world, but it will get you through this choke point, and hopefully it will get you the point, and that's the important thing. But, like, big AoE ultimates, the easiest way, dude. Like, if you got self-destruct, you can chuck self-destruct in. If you chuck it in, so that it's behind the enemy team, right? Like, if they're stood here and, like, self-destruct lands behind them, then your team is stood right here. They're like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Because then they have to be worrying about your team while self-destruct's right behind them. So whoever's got the shield is going to have to point their shield over here suddenly, and then we're going to have to get through cover. While your team over here is, like, hopefully going to capitalize on that. So, like, ultimates are really the easiest way to get through here. Because you really don't have any other options, like, geometry-wise to work with. Other than, like, I guess if you've got, like, a Widow or a Hanzo, they could theoretically get some work done up here and maybe get you through like that, but those are really the only things that are going to get you through this choke point, other than just, like, brawling it out with the enemy team, basically, and managing to win the fight. But that's not exactly a consistent result. The most consistent result will be with ultimates. This is a spot where Hanzo is good even unaided by other ultimates, because if the enemy team is, like, clustered together right here, sometimes people will be stood, like, a little bit back here. If Hanzo just stands over here and ults like this, then it's going to cut through all of the team right here, all of the team this way. It's going to cut through them. Sometimes people are, like, stood here, sometimes people are stood here. It's going to get them. The people that are stood here are going to have to either go forward into your team or back up and concede a bunch of ground. So this is a spot where Hanzo's ultimate, even unassisted, can get some work done, so that's nice, just because of the usual spot people are standing in. Because usually it's going to be like 4+ people are stood in this general area, with 1 or 2 people up there, pretty much. So it usually will get some work done. But that's the easiest thing to do for this checkpoint, is get ultimates. And same deal as before, don't let people sit up there, dude. If somebody's up there, don't let them sit there. If somebody's over there, don't let them sit there. Like, if somebody's back there, don't let them sit there. I don't care how you contest it, however you decide to do that, your own long-range DPS, a diver, a flanker, whatever, your Reinhardt fucking walking up this way so that he can go and swing at the soldier. Now, I don't care what you do to contest the high ground, but dude, don't let the guy sit up there shooting at your team for free. You can't let them do that. It will make it so hard to get anything done. And then once you get through this point, dude, just gank them when they come through this doorway. They're gonna walk through this doorway most of the time. If they've got a long-range DPS, they might go this way, but People are going to come through this doorway, dude. It's just, like, when they spawn like this, and they go... It's just what they do, dude. And then they're going to come through this doorway. It's just the way people autopilot back to this checkpoint. So, dude, just gank them as they come through this doorway. If you're playing Mei, sick, dude. Freest walls of all time. Stand, like, right here. Right here. You just get them when they come through. No problem. Like, that's the best thing you can do once you get through this spot, pretty much. And AoE ultimates. Chuck Blizzard right here. And they're like, ah, shit. Right? Still good. Still good. Attacking team or defending team. It's still, like, a really bad spot to have to push through a Blizzard in. So, there you go. That's basically that checkpoint. So, this checkpoint, also not particularly easy to push through just because you have less options available to you. But it's not that bad because your option isn't, like, exactly awful at the same time. Like, their option is sit here and shoot at you as you're coming through, but, like, that spot isn't the greatest to be in. So you can just either dive on them if you've got a dive comp going, or, like, push your bunker up through here. Like, it's not really that bad. Like, this position is the best they get for here. It's just, it's not incredible at the same time. So you can usually kind of just, like, push it up into them. Like, this is not really the spot I see people struggle to capture particularly. Like, I usually see people get through here. The problem is, once you have to do this rush at the end to the checkpoint, this is where people start to struggle. Because now, if you're gonna get 2 CP'd anywhere on Gibraltar, this is where you're gonna get 2 CP'd. Because you spawn here, right? You spawn here, and you are back at the enemy team in, like, no time flat. Like, you come out the doorway, I'm here now. So, if they've got fast boys, they got Mays, they got Lucios and Hammonds, they're going to get back in record time to start contesting you. So, like, that's what almost always happens right there. If you are struggling to get through this point, like, easiest thing to do is really going to be to flank again, because it's going to be, like, remember, people are bad at having object permanence, right? So, if we're playing Reaper, we don't have to worry. We can bypass that step by teleporting over there, and then we're, like, behind the enemy team. They don't know. And then we pop through this doorway. Dude, Anna stood, like, right here. Anna's dead. Isn't that sick? So, Reaper can get some stuff done there. And, like, the other easiest thing, dude, Farah goes up here. Right? Farah goes over here. Farah waits. Farah waits for a little while. They've probably forgotten about me by now. And then you jump down and you barrage the enemy team and you kill them. And that's pretty sick. Now, other thing you can do. Now, if they're stood over here, what's one of the defining characteristics about this spot behind us? It's pretty open and there's not a lot of cover in it, is there? I think Blizzard might be pretty good to chuck up here again. This is, you know... Blizzards are very annoying ultimate, isn't it? It's kind of like... most spots are, like, really good to throw a Blizzard in, because, like, think about it, right? You're stood here as the defending team, and you see Snowball land right in front of your feet right here. What do? You go into this doorway, basically. That's your only cover. So, dude, May's pretty good. May's, like, pretty good right now. I recommend playing Mei a lot, actually, just because Blizzard... Dude, like, look at this entire checkpoint and tell me that you wouldn't just hate to see Snowball land at your feet, right? Like, the whole checkpoint is like that. And so that's, like, the best thing to do, dude. Flank with Farah, flank with Reaper, what have you. Flank... Anybody with vertical mobility can flank that way, and basically anybody else can flank this way. The problem is just that they're going to see you in all likelihood, but not necessarily at the same time. Because what if you come around this corner and you don't see anybody there? Because maybe they're, like, they don't defend from here. Maybe they're stood, like, a little bit further back, right? They won't see you doing it anymore. Maybe you've already pushed them back a little bit, so they're defending a little bit more back here. They won't see anymore. So now you can actually come through here without having them see you at all until you're, like, right next to them. So, that's cool. Flanking is really going to be the easiest way. We can have a sniper back here, and as we established, like, that's pretty annoying, but, you know, once you're stood here, you know, you really appreciate that this line of sight isn't actually as good as it first seems like it should be, right? Because you really, like, imagine that they're stood over there, but they're stood behind an Orisa shield. you're not actually having that much fun back here, are you? Like, it's actually quite annoying for the enemy team, but you stand here and you're like, it could be a lot better, couldn't it? It could be a lot better. So you've got that. You push them back a little bit, and now we get to stand up here, and we've got this whole line of sight we can work with. That's nice. If you're playing McCree, like, standing up here as the attacking team and using Deadeye, as your team is pushing forward onto the payload, like, imagine your cart is, like, most of the way there, and you start using Deadeye right now. They have to come out and touch the cart, but you're stood all the way back here using Deadeye. There's, like, no way they kill you unless they have a sniper. So they have to, like, block you one way or another. It's quite annoying. But this is, if you're a long-range DPS, this is, like, the best place you can stand. McCree is not good up here outside of using Deadeye, but him using Deadeye up here is quite annoying. But, like, this is way too far for McCree fall-off damage-wise, but Deadeye up here is quite good. You might have to just, like, dissuade somebody from standing up here as well, because if you're pushing... Like, this is one of those maps, or one of those checkpoints where you might get flanked as the attacking team. Because if you're pushing up this way, right? Like, imagine you're, like, kind of, like, around here-ish. Well, if their soldier, their McCree, whatever, comes through this doorway, and you're stood, like, over here... If you're stood, like, right here... You know? If you're not looking through that doorway, McCree or Soldier might just, like, sprint past this doorway and nobody sees, and then suddenly they get up behind you. And then, oh no, now the defending team is flanking us with Deadeye. Or Attack Visor, and that happens more than it really should either, because you might be like, dude, how could you ever miss somebody going through that doorway? Well, when you're worrying about a bunch of people stood right in front of you, right, and you're, like, right here, you maybe understand how you're not checking this doorway as frequently as you should be, right? So that's something to bear in mind, is you can get flanked on this map, on this checkpoint, as the attacking team. So bear that one in mind. It can also happen on this checkpoint, I should point out as well. Because if they've got a McCree, I've seen it happen. McCree squats in this here, I was going to say this bush, in this shuttle, and he waits, and then he goes, let's go. And then he flanks the attacking team. So I'll point out that that happens sometimes as well. That's fairly rare, but it does happen. This one is far more common. Like, it's far more common to get flanked from here as the attacking team. So just bear that one in mind. But dude, like, you really don't have a lot of options outside of flanking over that way and, like, controlling the high ground once you push up far enough to be able to feasibly do it. Because if you're still trying to push up through this way, you can't really, like, abuse high ground in any meaningful way, right? Like, it's hard to get up there. Unless you're going to be the balls of steel soldier that's going to go for that one. I don't recommend it, but, you know. Sometimes we get away with things that we shouldn't really get away with, right? But if you're pushing up through here, you don't really have high ground you can use. Once you're pushing up this way, you've got a little bit more high ground that you can use, so that's nice. But, you know, same deal as before. If somebody's up there, get them off, dude. Get them off. It's not that hard. If you're playing like Winston, Hammond, Diva, whatever, you come around here, bam, you're up there. Don't even have to kill them. You probably won't, because they can jump down onto this health kit and then they're back with their team again, right? So you probably won't, but just getting them off of the high ground is the important thing. You don't have to kill them. If they're up here, get them off. You can't let them sit there. If they're over here, get them off. You can't let them sit there. Same as before. Good flanking opportunity for people with vertical mobility. Like, even if you got, like, a Genji, right? Imagine Genji's, like, up there with his Nano Blade ready, or his Dragon Blade ready, and Ana's down here, and she Nano boosts him. He then hops over the top and drops down on your team with Nano Blade. It's not very pleasant. So, this is the checkpoint where, like, vertical flanking's pretty good, and, like, Reaper can flank through that way as well. And, you know, maybe they're just not watching. Maybe anybody can flank them without them knowing that you're coming. And then, try not to get too CP'd again, dude, but hey, remember what we said when we were defending? Remember what we said earlier about Blizzard and some big open spaces? This is the biggest and most open space of them all. So, if you're worried about getting too CP'd here, which you should be worried about getting too CP'd on this checkpoint, it's pretty common to see a team get, like, literally right here and not be able to capture the last, like, 0.1 meters. Like, that is depressingly common. So it is something that you should worry about happening on Gibraltar. Best thing you can do is have some big AoE ultimates. Blizzard's the easy one, but dude, self-destruct, Earth Shatter, there's no cover here, right? So all you've got to worry about is getting past their shields, and even here, like, straight line, not a lot of cover. Earth Shatter can work, Graviton can work, Sigma's ult will work, self-destruct, I already said self-destruct, Death Blossom, like big AoE ultimates, they're going to be good here. Big open space, no cover. If they got a Zenyatta, you know, try and bully that guy ahead of time so he can't use Transcendence to just, like, cock block you on that one. But big open space, dude. Big AoE ultimates are going to be the best thing to do. And, you know, that might seem like such a cop-out thing to say about, like, these maps is, like, well, just have a big AoE ultimate. It's no big deal, dude. But, like, what else can you really do here, geometry-wise, right? Like, this checkpoint doesn't offer you a whole lot to work with for this particular spot. Like, the defending team have a huge spawn advantage on you. Because think about where you're coming from at this point, right? Like, if you're the attacking team, you're coming from here. And you're not coming from... the door's closed right now, so I can't show you. You're coming from pretty far inside this doorway. And you've got to come through here, all the way up here, right? Like, it's a really fucking long walk back as the attacking team. But the defending team is, like, right here. They're literally already less than 10 meters away from the checkpoint, because it's right fucking there, dude. So they just, like, come up, and they're here. Meanwhile, and we're moving at 300% speed right now. So you come through there, you're legitimately, like, 20 feet back from behind this doorway, right? Like, and you come through that, and you've got to go all this way. Right? Like, we're going at 300% speed. That was already, like, longer than I wanted it to be. So, like, regular speed, you're going all this way. It's awful trying to capture this last point of the checkpoint. And the worst part is if you get most of the way here and don't capture it, you get wiped, you now have to do all of this again without the payload now. Because the payload's over there, dude. So now you've got to come all this way and all this way without the payload to help you anymore. It's awful. It's the worst. So the best thing you can do is just have a big AoE ultimate on your team already when you're on this checkpoint. And when you get here, like, hopefully you didn't have to use it, like, previously, but you might have to, you know? The best thing you can do is just chuck some ultimates in here because you really... like, it's so easy to get stalled out here because of the spawn advantage the defending team has. And, dude, you don't want to have to do this a second time without the payload. You really don't want to have to. And the easiest way to guarantee you don't have to do that is just have an AoE ultimate ready to use here. So the defending team can't come out and stall you out. Which is extremely common. Extremely common. Outside of that, you know, you can bully them off. If you're playing Mei, like, they are going to come through this doorway. Like, this is the doorway people come back through as the defending team. There's nothing stopping them from going through this doorway. But the thing is, when you spawn down here, you're basically just already looking at the doorway on the right. So people just go this way, like, on autopilot. So this is, like, the autopilot door. You can, like, just... if you got a big boy, you can just, like, come and literally stand. Like, if you're playing Winston, right? You can pop your Mei right here and just, like, stand here. Right? And someone will go through the other door. Like, someone will go through that other doorway. But if you're holding, like, 4 people over here, right, while your payload is pushing behind you, and, like, 1 or 2 people go through that doorway, right? Like, Mei isn't going to come through that. Mei is going to come through this doorway, and that's, like, the one that'll stall it out, right? So if you stand here and, like, try and bully them back, the rest of your team can hopefully deal with that situation, right? You're playing like Reinhardt, you can just stand here and be like swinging in the doorway or put your shield up and just like stand here, right? And then they have to physically force their way past you to get to the payload. So that's something else you can do, but you've got to be a specific type of hero to be able to do that, right? Like, if you're playing Zenyatta, you can't really come and stand here and bully them back into the spawn, can you? Like, if you can, credit to you. Fucking incredible, but you probably can't. So... you know, it's unfortunate, but that's really the easiest way to deal with this point, is just chuck a big ultimate right here so they can't stall you out, because it is, just spawn-wise, so easy to happen. So easy to happen. So that's basically Watchpoint Gibraltar. That's about all I got for you. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you could join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still found it and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.